I can remember when I was in my 20s and 30s, I would often cut trees for people to make a little bit of extra money. One time I got my dad to assist me, and I went to a lady's yard and she wanted 3 pine trees cut. I don't know how tall they were, but I can tell you they were really tall. I took a 32-foot ladder, and that allowed me to get to the first limb. And then after that, I climbed the limbs up until I got to the very top, and then I tied a rope to the top, dropped the rope down, and then I came down about halfway down the tree. The tree was too tall to cut it and it fall in her yard, so I had to cut the top out of it. So anyway, my dad hooked the rope to the back of my truck, put a little bit of tension on it. I cut one side, notched one side, and then came on the other side and cut down at an angle. And whenever the top popped out of the tree, I didn't realize how much pressure my dad had been putting on it, because when the top popped out, all of a sudden that tree just started swinging back in the other direction. I held on as tight as I could, and I swung back and forth probably 15 feet in each direction from where it would have been standing straight up and down. It was quite a ride. Well, I experienced that on the first one. I had 3 more trees to cut, and so I got a lot of good riding in that day. I have a tendency of not doing things like that anymore. The adventures of a 20 and 30-year-old seem to be a lot different than the adventures that a fellow in his 60s might want to go through. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to be able to spend just a few moments with you today. I've been looking at David, and when I think about David, and he's getting ready to face Goliath. Goliath is 9 feet tall. He's a warrior. He's been trained to be a warrior. David has just been a shepherd. They're getting ready to go up against each other. The more I thought about the story of David and Goliath, it dawned on me that there was probably more than one reason why David was willing to face Goliath. Now, one very important reason, obviously, is because of David's faith in God. But the other reason that dawned on me as I was thinking about that was that whenever you're young, and I think David probably was a teenager, there's things that I would have done as a teenager, in my 20s, even in my 30s, that I would not even think of doing today. I had a different outlook on life as a teenager and in my 20s and my 30s. I find now that I don't heal as quickly as I used to, and I start thinking about consequences more so now than maybe I did then. And so I realized that God used David for a particular task at a particular time in his life. Now, if David would have been 40 or 50, would he have still gone up against Goliath? I don't know. But God used David at a particular time. And so it makes me realize that God understands us. He knows the way we think. He knows what our abilities are. There's things like climbing that tree that I mentioned that I did in my 20s and 30s that even though I'll still climb a tree, I would not cut the top out of a tree like I did back in those days. Things change in life. God allowed me to do things when I was younger that I probably wouldn't do now. But there's things that I'm able to do now that I never would have considered doing then. And so as we go through life, and sometimes we think, well, I'm too young to be effective for God, or I'm too old to be effective for God, or there's something else going on in my life and there's no way that I can be a witness, or I can be faithful, or any of those types of things. Well, the point that I'd like to make for you today, if I can, is no matter where you are in life, God is ready to use you if you are willing to be used by God. You see, God created us, and He understands our strengths and our weaknesses, and He understands where we are in life. And so my challenge for you this week is to think about that. What is it that maybe you've been putting off and not doing, that you feel like maybe this is something God would want you to do, but I'm just not ready, or I'm just not... Maybe you are. And maybe it's time to be able to do that. Put your faith and your trust in God. Realize what He has already brought you through and allowed you to become, and be the very best that you can be for God today. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly take steps of faith this week for God. Thanks for taking the time and watching today.